Barnaby Jones will return next Thursday night at 10, 9 Central and Mountain on most of these stations.
Word Balloon is brought to you by the League of Word Balloon Listeners.
Hi, I'm Alex Ross, and I'm doing my first CGC signing this year. It will be the exclusive way to get my signature, and submissions are limited, so please send in your books now.
Welcome back, everybody. Time again for Word Balloon. I know why Greg Rucka is laughing.
Barnaby Jones got me.
Come on,
that was
man.
good.
This is my like nerdy thing, and especially being a broadcast nerd, I am like constantly searching on YouTube.
I'm kind of let down that you didn't like play me in with something for like Rockford or Columbo or something like that. Honestly,
I don't have them for Rockford or Columbo yet. I've got Ironside.
I would have taken Ironside. Ironside. Like I deserved like a little classic detective. Magnum. You could have done a Magnum bit or a Simon and Simon.
I have a Magnum as well. Magnum is being postponed for a CBS after school special. And I've got Ironside, but yeah,
that's perfect.
Oh, here's one I have. Shame on me.
Chico and the Man will not be presented this evening, and the Rockford Files will be seen 1 hour later than normal, so that we may bring you the following special program.
Right.
Yeah, see now, that would have just been heart emojis and nothing but.
Shame on me. Shame on me. But,
should I, at the risk of discovering that there's absolutely nobody here to join us, is there a chat thing that I should open up?
Oh yeah, well there's
if I exit full screen, can I? Oh,
yeah,
there's the
probably.
comment.
There you go.
There you go. Look
and
at that.
No, man, Zach is here, and
hello.
Benjamin has just read issues 1 and 2 of what we're going to start talking about, which is The Forged. Hey man, God, you were really kind and you sent me the first 3 issues, but this is great. Here's the description on Image's website. In the 11th millennium of the rule of the Eternal Empress, a squad of planet-smashing super soldiers find their routine mission to be anything but. These are the Forged. They take no prisoners.
Yeah, that's a little. I preferred the cover copy that we put, or the copy that we put in previews. Let me see if I can bring it up.
Yeah, by all means.
I don't know if I can actually. I don't know if I have it anymore. Let me see. Nope.
Scott says hello. Nope. Linus says hello.
Yeah, and Mark.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't find that. Basically, the promo copy that we had done for the first issue in previews was, and this is the truth, right? This was the absolute truth. Was sexy pulp sci-fi over the top action in the vein of Conan and Heavy Metal and other comics you tried to hide from your parents.
Yes.
like Troutman and I have been working on this for years and years, and we knew at the start we wanted to do this pulpy thing, but it wasn't. There's literally, there's going to be profanity, so you'll mark it explicit. There's that line in the first issue, and when Eric wrote it about the 6-dick gorilla, and I almost got you on a spit take there. That wasn't the line. It was Crazy Joe's response, which is, quote, "The heart wants what the heart wants." And that was when I was like, that's the book. That is the book in a nutshell, right? Because the thing that we had been circling around and hadn't been able to articulate was, and I recognize how potentially problematic everything I'm saying is, but it was that feeling. I wanted that feeling from the book that I got when I was 11 and walked into the 7-Eleven, you know, a mile and a half near my house, and on the magazine rack, it wasn't Playboy, right? It wasn't that stuff back in the days when it was seeing the cover of Heavy Metal, and then that fear that somebody saw me see it. Do you know what I mean? The transgressive act of just having witnessed that this thing existed. I had a copy of back when Marvel published Epic.
Sure.
I had a copy of Epic that I dog-eared, and I remember, and I can't remember if it was a Starlin story or not. The female model, it took me years later, I realized it was a black and white story, and the woman in the story was modeled on Adrienne Barbeau. And I didn't realize that until years later. But I just remember there was the most definite hint of a nipple. And it wasn't like my parents were like, you know, we will beat this sin from you, child, or anything like that. But it really was it was just that sense of having found something that maybe I shouldn't have.
Yeah.
And that that goes actually to a philosophy I have about reading and readers, and in particular comic books. I think it's one of the reasons why comics are so potent as a literary vector, teaching reading. But it's that first time you were reading a book and there was a sex scene. Yeah. And it didn't need to be explicit, right? But you understood that there was this conjuring of these things in your head. And there was a piece, you know, for almost everybody who encountered it, I'm sure there's this piece of like, wait a minute, there's more of this out there, right? And I suppose in one light, this is going to make me sound exceptionally pervy, but that's part of what we come to literature and entertainment for, is to see these things and to open sort of our eyes to these broader stories and these broader possibilities. And then when you hit that, there's no going back.
Yes.
Right. The first time you saw the green-skinned Orion slave girl dancing in front of Kirk, you were like, oh my God, that's wrong. Right. Like it was like, did somebody else see me do that? And you can go through generationally. Everybody's got that moment of, I heard the term, I can't remember if it was if it's roots, and it may be, but it is that moment when, in particular, that sort of sexual awakening neuron fires.
Oh yeah,
but it ties into so many other things, and American comics in particular, and American media broadly, run screaming from sex and breasts and nipples and nudity. Yep. and consequently overcorrect when they do it, right? They don't embrace it as part of this whole in the way that European comics do and always have. In American comics, if something's going to be naughty, it's going to be all the way naughty, and we're going to be, you know, they're going to be spurting body fluids and people in unnatural position. It's going to go full porn, basically. It's going to go full porn.
Yeah.
And I mean, what we had somebody describe the Cassandra in the first issue as lingerie Darth Vader. And I was like, that's perfect. Lingerie Darth Vader is perfect, you know? So it's, you know, and then like I said, Eric and I had been working on it for years. I love it. We're doing what we always do, John, which is I'm just going to talk and you don't get to ask a question. I'm going to intercept every question of yours first.
I love this. No. You know that, man. Go.
So yeah, Eric and I had this idea for, I want to say almost 7 years, and had been working on it in various forms and had been unable to find an artist. And I have coffee pretty regularly with comics writer Aaron Duran, comics artist Matthew Clark, and comics artist Mike Henderson. And I don't know why it took so long, but 2.5 odd years ago, I'm sitting opposite Mike having coffee, and I go, "Would you want to draw this?" And he was the perfect match. And then he brought in Nolan Woodard for the coloring. And, Nolan's colors are stunning.
Yes.
And then I was casting around for a letterer, and I don't know how Ariana showed up on my radar. I can't remember who said take a look, but she's the secret sauce. So it's been a fun, long, weird journey. And the thing is, like you said, you've got three issues that you've read.
Yes.
Mike has drawn. I mean, Mike is drawing issue 6 as we speak. And so we've got good lead, and the way we've got the publishing set up is that it's not a monthly. We go, each arc is monthly, and then we're taking, we take a break, and then we'll do the next arc. And after our second arc, we may adjust the trade schedule if we can, or not the trade schedule, the publishing schedule, if we can accelerate it, because I would love us to be able to do it monthly. But and Henderson is just staggeringly disciplined. Like, he is so. There are artists you work with, and you can jab them with as many needles as you have, and they're never going to work faster than they work. And then there are artists who don't seem capable of slowing down. And Mike is definitely in the latter. Like,
cool.
Yeah, he's actually frustratingly quick.
To the point where you don't have new script to give him and stuff, or
okay, kind of like. Well, and Eric's had to have a minor surgery, so he's been offline for the last week.
Okay.
But I'm antsy already that, like, we need issue 7 written, and there's no way Mike's remotely done with 6. I know it. He's not. But I fully expect that I'll be wrong, and he'll give me a call on Wednesday and say, I need issue 7. And it'll be like, you bastard. Some of us need, it shouldn't take you less time to draw it than it takes me to write it.
I respect that. Absolutely.
I mean, just logically, it shouldn't.
Yeah, man. No, I understand. No, 100%. 3 comes out in 2 weeks, everybody. And this is the cover to 3.
Yes.
And those are the battle suits. And this is great because really, you guys are doing a ton of world building, obviously, or galaxy building, I suppose.
Yeah, empire building.
Empire building. There you go. There are threads of the Old Guard and even Lazarus. Much different story, much different world building. But, we're dealing with women on a mission rather than men on a mission.
Yeah.
And, these super soldiers. So there is that military vibe.
Yep.
With the trappings of science fiction.
Yeah, no, it's we're
just discovering the hierarchy of the Empress and the governmental / command structure.
Yeah, the any empire that is eternal is going to have its problems. And I think you get already hints of that, if not in the back matter in issue 1, that this is a top heavy, caste-based, classicist society. The second arc, this is not a spoiler, the second arc takes place sort of back at the heart of Empire. And one of the things that's going on is that if you can, like status, and it's subtextual, nobody actually ever says it, but status in the imperial court is entirely based on whether or not you can impress the Empress. And impressing the Empress is exceptionally hard because she's seen everything before, right? So, it's like, yes, I have seen a three-legged donkey dance the Nutcracker while dressed as an orangutan, juggling depleted uranium. I mean, I've seen it. Bored now. So, and like sort of embracing the tropes of the genre, it's also meant to be funny. It's hey Buick. It's there is an element of satire in the way that I think a lot of those heavy metal comics had that sly sort of that needling
reference. Yeah. I'm with you, man. No. I was embarrassed looking at the robot boobs on the covers as much as you were, my man. Absolutely.
Yeah. No. Well, and actually, we've had the problem right now. This is not a huge problem, and one of the things I always loved about, again, heavy metal and those humanoids comics and so on, is that there were equal opportunity as far as nudity went. We need some dingles. We need to see some naked guys, but because we're spending all our time with these women, and in that, I mean, you're dead right. It's like, oh look, Rucka's got a bunch of female protagonists again. Yeah, what a shock.
Yeah, that's
I
yeah, but honestly, Greg, much like what you did in the old garden stuff, although it was balanced with men and women. No, this is great. We don't have a lot of women on a mission comics, as opposed to men on a mission. I mean, there's a very Sergeant Rock vibe, but again, we're dealing with women here.
Well, and again, if you look at the back matter, and as more of this stuff evolves, there's actually a reason why the Forged are all women. In the same way that there's a reason why the Cassandras are all women. And a really deep cut, and Eric and I have sort of talked about this, but we haven't worked out the entire backstory. Right? I mean, you get from context that they're grown in creches, right? In enormous batches, in batches of millions and millions over these centuries and millennia. So so there's a question of what's going on genetically, right? And whether or not they are being genetically modified to be female, right?
Oh,
like if that isn't part of what the creche program is doing.
Wow. Okay.
And in that sense, there might. And again, we haven't really dug into it. There's a question of sort of that pansexuality. And this is really the heart of it, right? Because what you're really saying when, Greg, you've got these women again. It's like, yes, Greg is once again circling these issues of gender and sexuality and so on. And somebody on the on my fan Discord had asked if I think had read something in either issue 1 or issue 2, and I was like, so is this character queer? And it was like, you're gonna have to wait and see, because again, it's that broad spectrum. But this opens up questions, and again, remember, 10,000 years from wherever we are saying this empire founded. So that could be 30,000 years in the future, certainly. At which point we're in pure science is magic and it doesn't matter phase. But whether or not this makes, like, whether or not all of the Forged, and whether or not they're all trans effectively or not, is I think what I'm trying to say. Right. Wow. Because, well, but again, if this is something that is happening on a genetic level literally from the word go, we are making them because out of these batches, we're selecting for certain traits.
Yeah.
And the traits we are selecting for are super hard to select for, right? Like if 1 out of 1,000,000 qualifies for forged, then it's like 1 out of 10 million qualifies as a Cassandra. The Cassandras are even rarer, right? And as of issue 2, there are 2 of them. And we've had dialogue about the fact that you never see these mind witches outside of court and so on, which makes sense because if you have precogs, why would you risk them, right?
Yeah, the Cassandras, for people who haven't started the Forge yet, that's an allusion to Greek mythology. Cassandra was a, people.
She was an oracle. She was the oracle. I don't know if she was the oracle at Delphi. I can't remember off the top of my head. But yeah, so they're called Cassandras because they are psionics.
Yeah, they can see the future and everything. Yeah,
and
yes,
and their ability is entirely precognitive, and pretty honed. Like the nearer an event is, the more precise they are. But if you get 100 of them in one room, then you get effectively the Minority Report situation, where 90 of them say, "Well, this is the probable outcome in 10 years," and 10 of them will be like, "That's not what's going to happen." But as the event comes closer, the vision unifies. So, yeah.
No, I like it. That's excellent. Zach wants to know.
Thank you, Buick.
Yeah. All right. So yeah,
he corrected that. Yeah.
There we go. Zach wants to know. I know you as a writer, you do extensive research. Something I love and appreciate about your work. I'm curious what kind of research went into the Forge. Yeah, how did you and Eric
Mostly, honestly, the research we went in, the research we've done has been less for the world building and more for the astronomy. Like Gehenna, the world that they're on in this first arc, literally was Eric going, "Did you read this about this planet where it rains glass?" And I was like, "Well, we got to use that, man."
Awesome.
But one of the things that you get, right, one of the liberations of going, we're 10,000 years in the future. So, if there are flying peanuts, there are flying peanuts. I don't have to research if that's possible, right? At a certain point, the window becomes so open, it's like, no, it just is. Sure. It just is. I gave Mike a description in issue 6 of a swimming pool. That literally, like, he came to me and he said, "I don't know how to draw that." And I can't. I'm not sure it's possible. I said, "But that's the point." He says, "Look, I'm going to make it look like an MC Escher drawing anyway, but just don't be disappointed if your donut swimming pool with the sun deck floating where the hole should be doesn't quite work out." And I am, yeah. So to answer your question, Zach, less research for this in terms of the story. But the flip side is because we are, at least with regards to sort of our world building rather than our universe, like the actual science of, faster than light travel and things like that. We end up, every rule we make becomes a rule we are obligated to. So the more we build things up about the Empire and the more we are saying, and this is really part of the purpose of the back matter, because a lot of the back matter is to provide that supplemental world building and to show sort of where the rails are.
Sure.
The more we kind of, the more confined we have to become. And it's interesting because people are already asking questions. Wait a minute, there have to be other Forge teams. Are they all like this? Good question. Story question will come up.
Awesome.
Why doesn't Harpo speak? Is that a genetic thing? Or why is she called Harpo if it's 10,000 years in the future? Right? But yeah, so
We got Victory, Joe, and Harpo. Those
Yeah,
are our
it's
three.
Victory, Crazy Joe, Hap, Pusher, Harpo.
Okay.
And Harpo's got a remote sort of AI floating device dedicated to her called Spot, which is her spotter. And it's through Spot she communicates. Spot does all the talking for her. So yeah. And I realized I never played the game, but I had a moment when the first issue was coming out, and I was like, oh, people are going to be thinking we're doing a ripoff of, there's a character in like the last Metal Gear Solid called Quiet, or I think The Quiet.
Okay.
Who was this sniper who ran around wearing next to nothing for story reasons and never spoke, right? And it was like, that's actually not what we're doing. Yeah, or if we are, it's accidental. Having not played the game, I don't know the backstory well enough. So
that's so funny, Greg, because I was talking to my buddy Chad in Pittsburgh, who you know, and Chad was saying, "Is Rucka a gamer?" And I'm like, I know he's written a lot of, books.
I'm a gamer, but I don't play a lot of modern games. Like there's stuff that comes out that I have friends who are playing and so on, and I'll try it, and then I'll be like, yeah, I'm going to go back to playing Fallout 4.
Sure.
Or Baldur's Gate. I mean, like stuff from when I was 25.
Yeah, why not, man? Good Lord. Buick says that Harpo reminds him of the person on the TTY device in Callahan's
Castle. I suppose that may have been something that was feeding into Eric's take, and that's the other thing is like I can only speak with so much authority because Eric and I have hive-minded so much.
Yeah,
like we literally had an argument about who came up with evil.
Ha! That's another AI in the
AI that apparently controls their suits, right? Is called evil.
Yes,
which is evolved virtual intelligence and logistics, right? And I was convinced he had come up with it. I was convinced he came, but because it's the sort of thing he comes up with. And he was like, no, that was all you, man. And I'm like, I don't know what was. So I can't necessarily tell what's mine and what's his.
That's good, though.
And then Mike gets into it and is having so much. He's now gotten to the point where he's hiding all sorts of in-jokes on these pages and little gags and Easter eggs. So like, because he's got the room there, the format's there. So it is worth looking at these things with a magnifying glass and seeing what he's sticking in.
Okay. Let's talk about the format because it is oversized, both from a page standpoint and it's bigger and everything.
Yeah.
So, talk about that and that choice. I love it because I do think science fiction needs as much real estate as you can get.
Yeah.
And, God, I even have an old, I bought it at a convention a while ago, the adaptation of Battlestar Galactica, the pilot.
I remember that. I remember. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like I know it very well. Look, we knew what we wanted to evoke, and what we wanted to evoke required that format, right? If we're going to do this heavy metal sort of Conan thing of our youth, then it needs to have that feel.
Yeah, yeah.
And like you said, it's sci-fi. We wanted to be able to open it up, and giving Mike as much room as we could. And so we're, it is, this is going to sound a little, I don't want this to sound woe is me. We're kind of cutting our throats on as Mr. Dibbler would say in the Terry Pratchett verse in the Discworld books. You're getting the equivalent of not one, not two, but 3 issues per issue, right?
Yeah, man.
It's a 64-page book. We are charging you less than what the big 2 would be charging you for 1.5 of these.
Indeed. Yeah, $5.
Yeah, it's $6. It's $5.99.
Yeah. Oh, excuse me, $5.99.
Yeah,
but yeah, man. These are giant, both story and back matter. Absolutely.
Yeah. So you know, I mean, we'll see how financially viable we are.
I hear you, man.
I don't want to have to boost the price, because that will take readers away. And then the other thing that we've got, right, as much as people seem to, readers love the format. Retailers hate the format.
Well, because it's tough to shelf. I mean,
it isn't tough to shelf.
You know what
I know exactly. I know exactly, but it's not tough to shelf. What it is it requires engaging a little more thought about how you're going to shelve it. Because it doesn't neatly fit into, like, here are my DCs and my Marvels, and there's Image. Sorry.
I don't blame you. No, that's great, man. No, but this is what's great about Image, that you guys have each individual creative team has that thing. Ed did that oversized black and white magazine of Criminal that evoked the same vibe, you know, in a different way.
Yeah, no, that was exactly it. And we did that with the first issue. We did a magazine version on the first issue of Black Magic. And yeah, I think it's a rewarding format. And it's an eye-catching format, and it's fun. And it also goes to that thing of, you know what, that's like, do you have the second printing of issue 1 cover?
Oh no, I don't.
You don't. Yeah, because the second printing of issue 1, that cover is absolutely the kind of cover that when I was 11 or 12 and saw on a magazine stand, I would make sure nobody saw me see. You know, it's literally in that size, it's in your face. It's going like, oh my God, that's under boob. So, yeah.
And you guys have, pardon me, because I know Eric was a big part of the back matter of Lazarus. I mean, you guys have really, I think, shown a real appreciation of back matter, and that's something that the readers appreciate. But
I love it, though. I have to say, and Eric called me on that. Like the single most, like, issue 1, you know, you never have letters for issue 1 unless you have gone out and said, please give us letters. So we put in Evil Likes Dogs just to be like, well, you know, we got to fill some space in. Of course, Evil Likes Dogs is like the thing we get all the email about. Right? We have now something like 60 different dog submissions. We probably have enough dog submissions for the entire run. Right? Like, we're going to do 15 issues. We know we're doing 15. And yeah, we're not going to get through everybody's dog.
That's hilarious.
Yeah. And we've gotten some cats too, because of course cat people feel like, you know, evil is being unfair. So
all right, I'm gonna go to some fan questions.
Yeah, let's take some questions.
Alex says, I'm late to the stream, but any updates on new novels? Crossing my fingers for a new Atticus Kodiak book, but if it's been, all right, no,
it hasn't been asked.
So Alex, please, where are you with novels, Greg?
Well, we talked about it. I mean, it has been a long time since we talked.
True.
But the last, like, original novel I wrote was Bravo. It was published by Mulholland, I want to say in 2015.
Wow, 8 years ago. Yeah.
Yeah. And Mulholland / Hachette was in a knife fight with Amazon at the time.
Okay.
And Mulholland did not promote the novel. And it did not perform. And at the exact same time, it, like, literally the week it came out, my father died. So I was not inclined to go out and promote the book myself. And then Mulholland came back to me and said, do something totally else for your third novel that you owe us because it didn't sell. And it was like, I gave you the best novel I could. Bravo is not a bad book, and I appreciate Henry saying so.
Yeah, man. No,
I think Bravo is actually a very good novel, and sadly a very prescient novel. Like, if you reread it, a whole lot of the shit that's going behind the scenes in Bravo, like the stuff that's moving the plot, the overt plot is it's a men with guns chasing men with guns plot. But the stuff that's moving it, wow, 2023, it turns out, I called all that stuff. These people did exist. This cabal did exist. So people should read my stuff and pay attention. No.
I like Jad Bell. He's another interesting character of yours.
Jad was a lot of fun. The problem now is that we're 8 years out and doing Charlie. It isn't really going to fly, sadly. Which isn't the same. Which to go to Alex's question, is not the situation for Atticus. I actually have notes for a Kodiak novel.
Oh, great.
As people may be aware, there's a Writers Guild strike going on.
Indeed, we were going to talk about that. Go on.
And it's not going to be short. I suspect it's going to be quite long.
I agree.
So I may well have time to write it. It's tentatively.
It's comment from Scott. Greg Rucka was time traveler coming back from the future with dire warnings, couch and fiction.
No, man. If I was coming back from the future, I wouldn't couch him. I'd be like, "Don't do this."
But you have been prescient. You were prescient with Queen and Country as well, man.
Yeah, I'm good at reading certain trail signs.
Yeah, man.
And that's I suppose a learned skill. There are people who do it professionally much better than I do, but really it doesn't require a whole lot if you're paying attention. Like if you're actually paying attention, you can see these things coming. The problem is in preventing them. And the best I can do, to go back to the Cassandra reference, is stand on a soapbox and scream. But people tend to, it's a lot of too little too late. But, it's the Lazarus gag. We started Lazarus in 2013. This year is 10 years of Lazarus. In 2013, it was dystopian sci-fi. In 2023, it's a documentary. Right?
Yeah.
And it is. Like, if you don't look at the way wealth has balkanized the world and how it is the only thing that matters, it is an ideology. It isn't. All of ideology is now is the weaponization of the ultra wealthy to preserve themselves.
Indeed.
And like we have a culture war precisely to that end.
Indeed.
Yeah. And it's I don't know how we stop it at this point, but I suspect it will require a lot of bleeding from a lot of people. So yeah. That got grim.
Indeed.
To go back to the Kodiak thing, there is some Kodiak movement. I have notes for a Kodiak novel. It is called Whisper. It will take place in continuity with Walking Dead, meaning it takes place about 10 to 12 years after the end of Walking Dead. It is coming to find Atticus in his late 40s, early 50s. And everything that is sort of basically, he's had a nice quiet time for a while, and then it
happens.
It isn't quiet anymore.
I'm with you. That's awesome.
So yeah, it may get written in the next this year. It may well get written before the end of the year.
Okay, real fast. Henry goes, I guess, addressing Whiteout. Pardon me.
Oh yeah, there was.
How was Whiteout?
It was reprinted. I think it's been, Henry, I think it's been reprinted twice now. Like there was a hardcover that was total Whiteout, and there was a compendium.
Okay.
And then there was supposed to be stuff, and it didn't happen because Oni imploded on us in a lot of ways.
Sure.
And Steve and I have the books back. We actually got together like last week and had a talk about where we want to take them. And I think come July we'll make a decision.
Wow.
And it will go back into print somewhere. The same as I can say the same for Stumptown and QNC as well. So
I'm glad to hear that about QNC. You know that.
Yeah.
All right, Magic K has a question, and that's funny because I was whenever I'm talking to Ed next, I was going to ask this.
Yeah.
But how was your experience working on the new Batman Cape Crusader animated series?
I think I can talk about this. So Ed reached out to me specifically offering 2 episodes. He said either this one or this one. And of the 2 of them, he knew damn well which one I would pick. And I was presented with an outline that he had worked out with his writer's room. Like they had a writer's room that was staffed. X number of those scripts had to be given to that room. And then they had like 2 that could be sent out to others.
Oh, okay.
And I was one of those 2. I wasn't part of the room. But apparently Bruce and Ed were like, oh, definitely get Greg for this.
Wonderful. Bruce Timm, everybody. Yeah.
And so like I got an outline that was so crystal clear and so tight. And so it was a dream to write, right? It was literally just like, oh, okay, then it was an effortless write. And I gave it to Ed, and he shared it around, and I got some notes back, and they were not difficult notes at all. And turned it and saw an animatic.
Oh, wow.
I want to say like 6 or 8 months ago.
Great.
Because animation takes time.
Absolutely.
And it was a huge thrill.
Excellent.
And so, I mean, really, Magic K, the answer is what has the experience been? It's been a twofold one. The first is that experience, right? Which has just been fantastic working with these people on this thing. The second is much more intensely personal and rewarding, which is at this point in 2023, it is not a secret that I have had a long and fucked up relationship with DC Comics, right? DC never treated me well. And DC still has not treated me well, and they continue to not treat me well, and they never will treat me well. And that's just the way it's going to be. Because why should they? Right? They feel no obligation.
It's business. Yeah.
But I came to DC specifically because of the Burnett, Tim, Dini, Batman animated series. That was the gateway drug. I had read some of the comics. I had read, I came of age during year 1 in Dark Knight. Like I was in early high school when those came out. I knew those books, but I wasn't passionate.
Okay.
I got passionate in grad school when this show started, and Jennifer and I would record them so we could watch them together, and were blown away at the sophistication and the storytelling and the power of it.
Yeah.
And I end up writing the Batman I write because of the work that Bruce and Alan and Paul did. Right? That was how I come in.
Wow.
And specifically, I come to Renee Montoya because of them, right? Because she is created for that show. And even better, Elliot and I were rewatching the animated series recently, and there is an episode. It's the first Barbara Gordon episode.
Okay.
It's the one where she's going to become Batgirl. And if you rewatch this, you will see the moment I am talking about. There is a moment in that episode where I went, oh my God, Renee's gay. And you can see it on screen.
Wow.
It is there. I am not making it up.
Impressive.
They may not have realized it, but it is quite literally Renee in uniform walking past Barbara as she's seated and I think has been talking to Harvey. And she's following Harvey out. And it's animated. You can freeze frame it. She looks over at Barbara, and the look she shoots her is not a good one. The look she shoots her is, holy shit, you're hot. And I swear to God, I'm not making this up.
Interesting.
I was watching it with Elliot, and I freezed on it, and I was like, oh my God, that was the moment. That was the moment. Because when I got to DC and I started writing, like the first comic I ever wrote for DC was a Renee Two-Face story. And I knew in that story she was in the closet.
Wow.
So long answer, Magic K. To come full circle and to feel like what Bruce and Ed gave me was actually an opportunity to set down sort of this DC thing I've been carrying, to say, you know what, I'm done now. I've done my bit. I've done my bit. I am under no obligation. There are always going to be stories I wish I could have told. There will always be more stories to tell. But if this is the last thing I do that touches the DCU, I am good with that.
Wow.
There was no way they could know they gave me that. But it was not to sound, 10-ply, as Letterkenny would say, but it was a profound sort of sense of closure and healing in that. I kind of was like, yeah, I'm done. I can be done now. I can be done. So, yeah.
Amazing. Well, that's that, Greg.
It was a rare gift.
Well, that's good, and I'm glad you got some closure out of it and everything. And I've told you this before. This is, by the way, this week is my 18th anniversary of podcasting.
Jesus, really?
Isn't that scary? And
it's funny. I don't think it's scary. I think it's kind of wonderful because, look, I mean, our conversations are they're markers for me. Like, we don't talk nearly as much or as long as, say, you do with Brian, or whatnot.
No, I understand. And truly, and this, as you know, these are as much me and you hanging out as it is us promoting.
Yeah, it's just, I feel like we're just subjecting a whole lot of people to now, late middle-aged guys bitching about their, lumbago. But
I was going to say, though, my first experience with you was your novelization of No Man's Land. I've told you that before.
Yeah.
And also, it really does bum me out that, and again, you're in a better place now, but it's hearing stuff like that about DC and you, God, because Detective, when I really finally met you face to face, you were in the midst of your detective run with Sean Martinborough.
Yeah.
And that blew my mind. It was excellent, man. And this was years before the podcast, everybody. I mean, I was just really going up to Greg as a fan in at Wizard Chicago. That's the first time I really met him. And then followed up.
Back when there was a Wizard Chicago, not in Chicago. So
that's true, in Rosemont. That's right. And now it's the Fan Expo Chicago show, everybody. But man, no. And that's, God, it's just, you really had this great fresh take. And especially, I forget where I was. I think I was flying to New York to cover a boxing match when I read No Man's Land. I picked it up at O'Hare Airport. And I couldn't put it down. It was fantastic. I'm like reading it on the plane, reading it in the hotel, and it's like, this guy gets Batman.
That novel is probably the best-selling novel I've ever written. I've never seen a penny from it.
No shit. What the fuck?
Never seen a penny. I got paid for the novel. Never seen a royalty.
Wow.
Never.
Jesus, man.
Yeah.
Good Lord. That's
yeah,
insane.
this is what I mean. It's
Well,
like,
and again, everybody, we know with the WGA, and that's obviously different than comics and books, but my God.
yeah, though what the WGA, part of what the WGA is fighting for right now is going to influence all of this. Because if you think, for instance, that the AI provisions that the WGA are arguing against, right, and that are being absolutely refused, right, like everybody's just out of hand being like, no, we're not even entertaining it. The WGA is saying a writer needs to be a human being. That is literally the language. A writer is a person who does, and they're going, no, right? What we want is we want a world where an executive can go, I want an action movie where something blows up on page 30, somebody's betrayed on page 45, there's a sex scene on page 60, there's an explosion on page 75, and there's a happy ending on page 120. And the AI will barf it out, and then they will take that script. You laugh. This is. No, there are executives masturbating right now to the thought of being able to do this. They will then take that script and they will go to an actual writer, a human being, and they will say, "We will pay you pittance to turn this into something that isn't hot, smoldering shit." And we will give you a week to do it, and you will have no rights, party to it, benefit of it. If it is a success, you will see no benefit to the fruits of your labor, and we will take your work that we have paid a pittance for that week, feed it back into the machine, so we don't need you to do it next week.
Wow.
Now, if they're going to do that in Hollywood, how many people in the chat have already gone and been like, hey, I can go to the art AIs and put in 6 prompts? How long is that before your comics are all AI generated? How long is that before your novels they're already out, right? They're being sold. And everybody's like, yeah, but they're bad. It's crappy. It's so, guess what? Like, I was talking to my manager about this today, and she was saying, well, you know, the tech people are saying, yeah, but it's just not labor effective. It takes 500 hours to do this. I was like, yeah, but that's how all tech begins. All tech begins with it getting smaller and smaller. It takes 500 hours now.
Yes.
In another year, it's going to take 100, and in another year, it's going to take an hour.
Yep.
All right. And and it's going to get better and better and better. I am not fucking going to train these things if I can help it. And never mind the larger issues, again, shit that, you know, we're all seeing in the media and that we're paying attention to, of what the proliferation of AI is doing in social media now, somebody's got to draw a line. And this is not to sound anti-tech or Luddite. No. It's to say, you know, we better slow the roll here, guys. And the exact opposite is happening. Yes. The precise opposite is happening. Google has accelerated their AI development now because they got caught with their pants down. So instead of going, wait a minute, right? I read a thing in, I want to say, The Guardian yesterday or the day before, you know, it's like an international group of physicians basically saying, we need to stop on this right now. This is not an existential threat. This is a manifest threat. And it's not that the machines are going to try to kill us. It's not the Terminator. It's that what they are learning is incorrect. They're going to make wrong diagnoses. People are going to die. How do you sue an AI for malpractice? How do you correct that? Right? So we have strayed, but anybody who doesn't think that this is a problem, right? And then you hear like the Zaslav comments about the strike being like, oh, they love to work, so they'll settle because they love to work. It's like, you know what? I do love my work, not enough to do it for free.
Yep.
and certainly not enough to do it at a loss, which is different, right? Why should I do it and give it to you so you can make another You make $250 million a year. It's grotesque. And never mind the argument there that, well, they love to do it. Oh, so wait a minute. Do you not love what you're doing? Is that why you're getting paid so much? Or do you love what you're doing and that's why you're getting paid so much? Because in either case, the argument is fallacious, buddy. It collapses the moment you look at it. And the arrogance and the privilege of that. Oh, they'll do it because they love it. Yeah. Guess what? I'll find a way. But you won't get anything out of it. Right?
Yeah.
If I need to, I will find a way to put my stories into the world on my own little website, and maybe I won't make a living at it, but maybe I will. But the idea that I should just sit back in the same way that SAG-AFTRA, has announced, Netflix is saying that they get rights to the actor's likeness, voice, and performance to extrapolate and exploit for perpetuity, throughout the universe, in any technology, known or unknown. Wait a minute, you don't own me. This is a problem. It's a real problem.
No, and I agree with you, man. No, it will take months to settle. And right now, obviously, both sides very entrenched. And again, I'm a SAG-AFTRA member myself.
Yeah.
So union, yes, and I'm with the writers, absolutely. And
and this is a political fight. Yes. And this is one of the things we're talking about. If you look at, the studio heads, almost every one of them is not just quote Republican, they're MAGA hats, either quietly or, in the case of Zaslav, loudly, right? So it absolutely is a political entrenchment. It's an argument saying, and this is the other thing, it's a zero-sum game. They don't get this. Okay, say greed wins. You end up with Lazarus. Nobody else can feed it. At a certain point, capitalism ends, right? Like end stage capitalism is the end of it. You've won. There's nothing else to buy. You have all the money. Everybody else has nothing. They will never be able to get it. And you have everything you want. And at that point, we are literally back in the dark ages and feudalism. And
as depicted in Lazarus. Speaking of which, Craig says, how's it possible that Lazarus hasn't been picked up by a top-tier streamer? It has all the elements of a successful modern drama, dystopian setting, diverse cast, plenty of intrigue and action.
Yeah, you'd have thought. It has gotten... It has been developed twice.
Okay.
And each time it got spiked. The second time, literally by Amazon, because we're already doing a thing like that. The thing they were doing like that is the Fallout show. But I actually think there's another reason too, which is I think this may be crediting too much. I think certainly during up until a year or two ago, it was hitting too close to the bone. In the same way that you can't sell a cop show this year, right?
Because of the culture wars and everything that's going on.
It's not even... you can look at it that way, but the other thing is that it's a societal shift right now. even no matter which side of the political divide you are on, how much do you trust the cops, right?
Sure.
We are experiencing a 1970s effect on that level of authority.
Interesting.
Right? Poker Face is such a hit, not just because it's so goddamn good, but because it's an anti-cop show, right? It's not anti-cop, but it is a cop show without the cop.
I'm with you.
And far more sophisticated than that. Like in the tradition of the Best Private Eye shows, right? It zeroes in specifically on a certain societal attitude over and over and over again. It is picking up on that entitlement. I was owed this, and the malfeasance that comes with it, right? And yeah, so I will be very surprised if you're going to see a whole bunch of new cop shows in the next couple of years. You're not. I think you're going to see a pullback from that. The wheel will turn again. Sure. The 70s led to the 80s, right? Sure. Eventually, Rockford. Without Rockford, you don't get Hill Street Blues. You know what I mean? And Hill Street gives us, we can do cops in a real way, right? Troutman once said to me, and he's not wrong, if Dick Wolf was smart 2 years ago, instead of resurrecting Law and Order, he should have done Law and Order Internal Affairs. Because people would tune in on that. Oh yeah, let me see the rotten cops getting caught.
Sure, just like whatchamacall, The Shield.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
interesting.
So I for whatever reasons, and so that's where we are now. Lazarus has a bunch of baggage attached to it in the medium. And I am more than happy. Right now it's not with anybody. It hasn't been optioned. We've got it back. Michael would like to see it optioned. I do not disagree with that desire.
Sure.
But I suspect that if we can keep our powder dry another year or two, somebody's going to come back around.
Okay.
Because one of the other things that happens is executives are seasonal, right? They wither and they die and new ones bloom.
Yes.
And this is why you get, "Are you there, God? It's me, Margaret," finally. You know what I mean? Because the young women in particular who grew up loving Judy Blume are now people who can make movies.
Yep.
Right? And that's how you get a good "Are You There, God?"
I'm with you.
That's how you get a 2-part Dune movie. Right? And it may be that in another couple years, we're going to get an executive who goes, "I love this comic." Or it may never happen. I'm not holding my breath.
No, I totally hear you. Now, in regards to that, Zach wants to know, you enjoyed the Old Guard story and the Image anthology.
Oh, thank you.
Any more Old Guard comics? And also, how's the new movie coming along?
The new movie is in post. I am told they're looking at a release in 2024. Because of the strike, I am absolutely not involved in anything they're doing. And they cannot communicate with me and wouldn't be anyway. Leo and I have a third story that we want to tell. I have not written it yet.
Okay.
Leo will very happily draw it the moment I write it. Honestly, I felt Force Multiplied was not great. And that's on me. That's not Leo. I don't feel that the vision of Force Multiplied was very clear. It was muddied, and I don't think it was a terribly rewarding story. Now, in the totality of 3 Old Guard stories, that may work out really well. Okay. But I was not happy with my work on it. And for that reason, we've always let me roll this back. I wrote the first Old Guard. We finished it. Leo said, "Let's do some more." I said, "I don't want to. This was meant to be a done in one." He said, "But there's so much more to do," and I was convinced. At that point, I was like, well, if we're going to do 2, then we're going to do 3. We're going to do the Old Guard opening fire. We're going to do the Old Guard force multiplied, and we're going to do the Old Guard fade away. Right? And I want to get fade away right. So until I know, and I mean I know what I'm going to write, I am not going to start that one. I have ideas. I know the ending that I want, but part of the joy of the first Old Guard and part of the difficulty of the second was that the first Old Guard was it's a Roadrunner cartoon. I mean, if for you there are layers to it, and it gets deeper and sharper, and there's meat there, but it's a Roadrunner cartoon. There's literally nothing you can do to them, right, that you can't do to Wile E. Coyote. And the beauty of Leo's art and his storytelling is that he can take, one of my favorite panels is in the first series, and it's after they've all been shot to hell in the killing floor, and Andy's got I think it's Andy's got an eye. No, Andy's missing literally half of her skull. Joe's got an eye hanging out from dangling by its optic nerve. And that should be vomitly inducingly gross. You know what I mean? That level of gore should just be no, nobody. And the beauty of what Leo does is it's funny. You look at it and it's a gag. And I don't, and because of that, a lot of what the Old Guard, the first one was it was a lot of fun, and then and the poignancy and the pathos of it then rises up out of it. And I don't want to lose the fun. They should be fun, and they are silly. I mean, they just think about the concept. It's silly. His eyeballs hanging out from his optic nerve. And then the next panel, it's back in, right? That's funny, guys.
Yeah. When
Leo draws it, it's funny. So trying to square that circle, is a thing.
Well, and also I would imagine because the second part was kind of a slog, does that kind of debilitate you from getting excited about doing that third part?
Yeah. And there's also the difficulties of working on the production because these are different continuities. The movies are going to do what the movies do.
Oh, yeah.
But the comics are ours.
Right.
I can control those. I can't control the movies. Literally can't. I am not Rian Johnson. I am not a writer-director. I can't say this is the movie we are making. And they're under no obligation to do anything I wrote in my script. Ever. So you take that, and then you take that where we left Andy at the end of Force Multiplied in the comics is dark. It was meant to be a darker story because things aren't clean. And the idea that you can live 5,000, 7,000 years and commit no sin, to me, is laughable. And it goes back actually to something I think I told you about this long ago, but it goes back to something that I've felt ever since I sort of became a quote unquote professional writer. The very first novel I tried to sell, which is not to say I tried to write, was my master's thesis at USC. And my thesis advisor, and I will never forget this, said to me after he had read it, and he says, it's an excellent novel. I'm giving you an A. I'm going to send it to an agent I know, and he's going to tell you why you will never sell it. And I said, why won't I sell it? And he says, because nobody wants to read about a guy who makes a mistake. These should be like James Bond. He should be like super suave and get everything right. And I just remember looking at him and going, wow, that is a big difference between who you are and who I am, because I'm a kid who grew up and saw the Challenger explode one day on TV.
Yep.
Mistakes happen. Bad shit happens.
Yep.
Heroism to me is going, okay, now I got to fix it. I got to make right.
Yep.
And the idea that there can be no wrong in these characters, that they can't fuck up and then have to own it, is that I reject it. So the idea that Andy took slaves. That was the world she came up in, and she knew it was wrong. It didn't matter that that was the world she came up in, because you cannot commit a crime against humanity, and that's what slavery is, and go, well, it's not one. In the same way that 7,000 years ago, she knew rape was wrong too. Right? So yeah, I've got to figure out how I get through the story, because like I said, I've always known how I want to end it.
Okay. So. All right, very good. Pumpkin time. Here's a good callback. Any fond thoughts you can tell us about your time working with Matt Wagner on Grendel?
Yeah.
Another Portland guy.
Matt was that was such a trippy experience. I was so young and wide-eyed, and he was like, you want to do this thing and I'll do illustrations? And I said, oh God, yes. And he basically gave me a list of the things he wanted to draw. All of the illustrations in Past Prime are, every one of them are illos that Matt wanted to draw. And in the same way that sort of writing the Batman animated episode off of this outline that I'm given by Ed that has been worked on, and it was, I wrote an outline based on this and I gave it to Matt, and he said I would like this and do this and this and that thing. And also, I mean, God, man, I was so young. That was the sort of thing where I have gotten slower the older I've gotten. I type faster. I've gotten slower. And man, I just remember rifling that son of a bitch out, like firing it out. And here's a chapter and sending to Matt. And here's a chapter and sending to Matt. And here's a chapter and sending to Matt. And he would shoot these sketches back, and he would be like, oh, I really like that. I'm going to draw this, and so on. And it was just fun. Matt's always been a fun guy. And always very, I mean, he and I aren't close. We have always been friendly, but we're not close. He's always been remarkably self-possessed. Like, he's a guy who knows what he wants. And I have always respected that enormously. And, for me, it was a dream because, again, I was in college and I was buying 2 copies of Mage so I could cut up one of them and, tack panels to my walls. That was how I decorated my dorm room.
Sure.
Like I would buy 2 copies of the O'Neill Cohen Question, and I'd buy 2 copies of Wagner's Mage. And it wouldn't be pages. It would literally be panels. I would cut them up and then put them up.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I was a weird kid.
No, you weren't. That's awesome, man. Pumpkin Time, you are so right. He says, I need to have Matt back on the show. Yeah, he was on back during lockdown.
Yeah. And
we did one of our online shows. And that's the last time Matt's been on. No, you don't have to. Seriously, everybody. I love Matt Wagner. He's, as Greg described him, I wouldn't say we're close, but I do believe we have enough of an acquaintanceship that I always love talking to him.
He's one of the good ones.
Yeah, man.
One of the good ones.
And like you said, self-starter. Go ahead. What are we?
No, I was going to say Zach, and I don't know if this was answered. Lazarus had been at Amazon, but yeah, right. Amazon. They actually came back around and tried to buy it outright about 6 months ago.
Oh, wow.
Just said we want to buy it. and then they made a really, really shitty offer. And if we had accepted it, not only would they have owned it to do whatever the hell they wanted, but Michael and I wouldn't have had any say. And there are certain properties that I am more than happy to option and sell and say, go with God. Nick and I on Black Magic, when we've had people come around, been like, yeah, you want to go, because people are going to be like, let's do Witch Cop, and it's like, okay, if you think this is Witch Cop, knock yourselves out. That's not the series we're doing, and until we're done, you're not going to know what it is. And yes, that means we're going to finish it. Black Magic got optioned by Apple about 1.5 years, 2 years ago. And that option is going to expire. They're not going to develop it. It's clear that there's no motion on it. And Nick and I were like, sure, fine, we'll take the check, do whatever you want. Lazarus, for me, has always been one of the things where I've been like, no, you can't do this one without me. Like Stumptown, I was like, yeah, go with God, do whatever you want. How can you fuck it up? Well, turns out you found a way. Yeah. But on Lazarus, it's like, because what a Lazarus show would allow is showing things that we couldn't show in the comics. And there's so much that just is never, ever going to get to the page because we are limited in how much room we have to tell story. So the story has to focus on these specific moments, primarily on Forever's journey.
Honestly, much like The Boys and how it is different from the comic, yet occupies that same mindset and everything. No, absolutely, man. And again, all the back matter that you guys did with Lazarus and everything. No, definitely. This is again, and that's why maybe after all this bullshit, not that it isn't righteous arguments that need to be addressed and settled. But maybe once we get past this strike and everything, hopefully,
we will see. There's going to be, however the strike ends, there's going to be a glut of material, and then after that tidal wave runs, things will settle. We'll see.
Yeah.
The book will hopefully be back.
Yeah, I was going to ask.
Yeah, we were. Look, I was hoping we'd be back by the end of this year. That's not going to happen.
Okay.
Michael lost his mother.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, it was not unexpected, and but yeah, but I am hoping I'm hoping we'll be back sometime in 2024, and then when we come back in 2024, we're coming back to end, because I will not solicit the first issue of Lazarus Fallen until we have 3/4 of the run completed. I want it to deliver monthly with maybe one gap for a trade break, but maybe not even do that. Like if we can go, no, we're going for 12 months.
Wow.
Here are the final 12. That's it. But the time has come to land this plane.
Okay.
So,
yeah.
or
No,
craft it. So.
No, but I appreciate that too. And I remember having this conversation years ago with others that would have successful runs that would get into, how many, more than 60 issues of Lazarus?
Well, it's hard to, because the quarterlies were effectively double sizes. We did 28, 29 of the original series. We did 7 of Risen. We did 6 of the X66 miniseries.
Okay. 41.
And then we're going to have, so by the time this is done, it's certainly going to be the equivalent of 50 or 60 issues.
Yeah.
Now, taking 12 years to do 50 or 60 issues isn't the greatest speed, but thank you, Scott. Yes. And as we saw in the last issue of Risen, actually. So yeah, it's funny. I just sent another Lazarus script to Michael today. And one of the goals actually of the strike is I'm going to get all of the Lazarus issues will be written. I'm going to have them all done. So
That's great, man. No, and wow, I can't wait to see how it all wraps up when you guys get back to it.
Yeah, me too.
Mark McGrath, I want to acknowledge this because, and is that right, Sugar Ray? Wasn't he Mark McGrath? No question, really. Just thanks for the books. They mean a lot to me. Also, thanks to you and John for turning me on to the Sandbaggers.
You're very welcome.
Greg, have you seen? There's a Canadian sketch group from the '80s called the Frantics.
Yes.
And Paul Chato has been a active YouTuber who's been commenting on Hollywood and the culture wars and a lot of things. He just released a 45-minute look at the first episode of the Sandbaggers, where he's showing it and freezing, and then fast forwarding into various scenes, but just raving.
That is
how it's the greatest spy show ever.
It absolutely is. I rewatched a couple of the episodes from the first season not too long ago. And you're very welcome. The more people who know about the Sandbaggers and know my dirty little secret, which is don't have an original idea in my head, the better. The better. I know the Frantics very well. And in point of fact, and I can't remember who it was, there is a Frantics reference in my Punisher run.
Wow.
And I got an email from one of them.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. I think Spider-Man calls Frank Moo Moo Bunny Lips. But yes, I love the Frantics. I love the Frantics.
Yeah.
And now I am going to have to track this down because I had no idea.
I'll send you the link.
I would love to see that. But yeah, and that first episode is freaking brilliant.
It really, oh my God, it really is.
And does what it says on the tin. The first episode is called First Principles. And literally is like, this is everything you're going to need to know about this series. This is going to, if you thought you were going to get this kind of spy show, you're not. And I think that's one of the things that I am loving about Slow Horses is that there is an element of that Sandbaggers.
Yeah.
They've shunted them off to the side. You still have Box being, this very sexy, high-tech, glossy, computery. But then you got, Slough House, which is just a pit. Right? Yes. It's literally a pit.
I love Gary Oldman's holes in his socks.
It's fantastic.
He and everything. Absolutely.
It is. He is giving a terrific performance. There's not a bad performance in it.
No. Jonathan Pryce, of course.
I really like second season quite a lot. I have to admit.
No, it's a beautiful show. Well, like I was saying off the air, and I am behind. There are so many spy shows right now. There's one on MGM Plus. Formerly Epics, and it's and it looks at the early '60s Ken Philby era of British intelligence and Soviet sleeper agents and stuff that are not sleeper agents, but double agents and everything that are doing dirty work while working for the British government. No, and I want to see that, and I've got it on my DVR.
I guess The Diplomat. I've heard stuff about The Diplomat.
So have I. That's Kerry Russell's show, everybody, on Netflix, and that looks really great.
I'm still waiting. I'm still waiting for a show that says no, this is Espionage Today, and it's really Espionage Today. It's not. It's not Navy SEALs going after Al Qaeda.
Okay.
It's not thwarting the latest terrorist thing.
Right.
It's how are we dealing with this bot attack? How are we dealing with this misinformation? How are we dealing with a fucking Discord leak? You know what I mean?
Yep.
How are we dealing with the fact that we have Christo-fascist white nationalists apparently infiltrating in having seated themselves at every level now? How are we preserving? How are we doing what these institutions in theory are meant to do, which is defend the Republic?
Yep.
Because they're failing spectacularly and have been for a while now.
Yeah.
Now, I say that also knowing that we don't see the successes. The nature of the success is it's not advertised.
Sure.
But, oh my God, some of the owns right now are really bad.
I'm with you, man.
Are really bad. And I've thought about, people have asked, well, you ever go back to Queen and Country? And I've had ideas, like I know what I would do. But the problem there has always been I don't know what it looks like now.
Sure.
That's the thing. I could have told you what espionage looked like 25 years ago. But what the CIA and SIS are doing in a post-Brexit, and potentially pre-Trump world,
yeah,
I have no idea. Yeah, I mean, very easily, how the copy writes itself. It's King and Country. There you go. So,
yeah,
that one. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if it'll happen. There are some stories that I have notes for things that I'm doing, and Cully Hamner and I are working on something that hopefully will be out this fall.
Oh, that's great.
He is a delight.
You don't have to tell me, man. No. I've only gotten to know him better the last couple of years. Absolutely.
Yeah, and then and Michael and I have actually had conversations about what we'd want to do after Lazarus, which I take as a good sign, because that's it. At least he says I never want to see you again. Was a possibility. So it's been fun. Great. Don't call me, I'll call you.
God, I mean, and yeah, you guys have been over 20 years working on
Central and this.
Yeah.
Like I said, I saw Libra last week and was reminded how much I like working with him. And and that's one of those ones where it's like, Jesus, I got to come up with something we can do.
As I've told you a million times, I wish I could just up and move to Portland, because you and Lieber and Matt Clark and
it's a nice town.
Fraction. And no, I know, man. Believe me, I know.
Of course, you would miss out on many of the joys of Chicago. So,
well, and there's that too. Yes, you're right about that. Too funny, man. You're killing me. What else? I mean, Greg, I'm happy to just roll on with you, and we can reminisce on or off the air for that matter.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of any other movies or TV that lately have really intrigued me. Just the whole, I am beyond the writer's strike. I really think, and obviously it's crawling back, the idea of going to movie theaters and stuff.
Yeah.
But a big part of me really feels like the pandemic sadly exacerbated that lethargy in terms of, there's really, I mean, God, I saw Black Adam in the theater. I wanted to see it.
You were one of those guys.
I admit it. Well, and it didn't hurt that they put the Justice Society in there as well.
Sure.
But I'm looking at the marquee. I'm not a horror guy, and I'm just looking at everything else that was being offered, and I'm like, don't care.
Yeah.
And I love. I mean, God, I especially in the 80s and 90s, and in the early aughts, all about going to see independent film.
Yeah.
Seeing those great little movies and things. But we're getting in the theaters,
the vector changed, right?
Yeah.
I mean, one of the things that, and again, Hollywood did it to themselves. Right?
Yes.
People aren't going to the movies. We'll put these things on the streaming services. Okay. Well, guess what? We now expect them on the streaming services.
That's right.
And, my health is pretty good.
Good.
But, thank you. But I am, let me put it this way. I am a Portland Timbers season ticket holder. I only started going back to games a month and a half ago.
Wow.
All right. And that's an outdoor experience in a stadium. And I've only now gotten to a point where I'm comfortable enough to do that, but I'm still bringing a mask with me. Now, I admit I'm paranoid to an extent, but I don't think I'm unreasonably paranoid.
No.
There are way too many lunatics who are like, science isn't real. It's like, what do you how many people do you see walking around with polio? Dipshit, so the movie theater experience, right, it used to be Well, if you wanted to see it, you had to go to the theater or wait 6 months. And now it's like, well, I don't have to go to the theater. Literally, I wait a month at the most. And there's not a whole lot that's making me go, I better see it in a theater. There's not a whole lot out there that I get excited about. And now the deliberation required. Do I want to go? Do I want to get the ticket? Do I want to spend the incredibly large amount of money on this when I'm already spending money on my streaming service?
Yep.
Because it is incredibly expensive.
You're damn right.
Do I want the risk? Never mind pandemic risk. The risk of being in a public place, undoubtedly with assholes, some of whom may be armed, right? Yeah. Yep. Hey, Brian.
Brian's watching. Yay.
I would see Spider-Verse with Brian.
Yeah, there you go. There's one.
See that I would see in a theater. And that's the thing. I would go with a group, right? But it's so much easier to be like, I can watch this at home, man.
Yeah, I'm with you. Absolutely. And he's smiling now.
Tickets on sale now.
Absolutely.
And Brian gets no residuals at all. He's just a fan, folks.
I am psyched for Spider-Verse. I will.
Yeah, no, how can you not be? Never mind the trailer after the first one alone. So,
God, yes. No, great movie. I know. That's so funny. Yeah, man. But you're right. I mean, listen, boxing fan. Still haven't seen Creed 3. Still haven't seen Creed 3.
See, and I'm a fan of those movies. Like, I haven't seen it either. I didn't see Wick 4, but I didn't see Wick 4 because I thought Wick 3 was such a car crash. It's like, I'm not sure you guys can claw your way back. And then I'm told it's 3 hours and it is much better. But I'm like, I don't need to be in a theater for 3 hours. This is going to be 3 hours of bullet ballet. I would like to be able to pause and go to the bathroom. Right? I that one I can watch at home. I would love to see Dungeons and Dragons, just as a dyed-in-the-wool tabletop gamer. That one I want to see in the theater.
Okay.
Haven't had the opportunity to go yet.
And windows closing.
Yeah.
So that's the other thing, as you said, you'd have to wait 6 months in the past for it to show up on cable or whatever. Now it's showing up 6 weeks, and showing up. So, Brian,
Wick 4 is a masterpiece. Is it enough of a masterpiece to erase the stain and sin of 3?
Killing me.
You just need to dial him in next time. We'll have a 3-way. We're going to argue the play. I'll see it, and then we can argue it.
Seriously, man, it would be great for us all to screw around like that.
I have no problem. Well, but see, this is the reason. This is the reason to, come to get you out here.
Yeah, to come to Rose City. I know, man. No, I miss you guys, and no, I would love that. And yeah, no, absolutely, and throw Fraction in there as well. Kelly Sue too.
Yeah,
Jan, of course. Alyssa as well.
There are lots of folks.
I know, man. It bums me. Although, as I always
Nicola and her husband, are going to be here, I believe, for Rose City as well.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah,
that's excellent.
Andrew. So
is Andrew
Constant is Nicola Scott's spouse.
Oh,
Andrew's also a comic book writer.
Oh, very cool. Very cool. So, very sweet, buddy. Back at
yes. See you soon, Brian.
We'll talk, Brian.
Now, how many people in the chat were like, "Holy shit, Bendis was there"?
Honestly, it is the greatest compliment, and I will say this on my anniversary week. Gail shows up, Simone, Nick Barucci from Dynamite, Walt Simonson.
You've got a fan club.
It's incredible. Well, you guys have the fan club. I mean, Brian, Brian's sick of me.
No. Let's correct this, and maybe this is maybe this is our grace note, and we'll wrap it up, and we can not wait 40 years until we do this again.
All good, buddy.
But I will say, and I've said this to you before, but it's worth noting, right? Zach is correct.
Thank you.
There are professionals who are eager to talk to you, John. Okay, you are, and there are not a lot of interviewers. I don't do this a lot anymore.
I know you don't.
I don't do shows. I do Mimi Chan's podcast, and love doing it, and love Mimi, and that started as a pandemic thing and became like the Greg and Mimi show, where basically she would poke me and I would go for 15 minutes like some, apoplectic wind-up doll. But it is, you say they're here, there are fans. If there are fans, we're your fans.
Thanks, buddy.
You know what I mean? There are some people you talk to because you go like, well, I need to do it, or I want to promote this, or so on. I am not on social media, and I am out of fucks. So, and I am so out of fucks. If I'm going to talk to somebody, it's because I want to talk to them. So,
well, I mean,
that's what the pandemic cured me of. It took my last fucks. So,
well, I'm glad that I'm still on the list of people that
yes,
you return the call, and we get together. Pumpkin time, very kind, man.
Yeah,
thank you very much. So there you go.
Zach wants to know if I've considered a Substack. I am wildly suspicious of it. I am wildly suspicious of Substacks. I know it's done well for people. I am also not sure that, I'll be honest, last year was really hard for me. I had one of the worst years, sort of emotionally and psychologically, that I have had since 2009 when I left DC. And when I left DC, like the 2009, 2013 period was, I was sick. I was ill. I was suffering undiagnosed depression that really almost culminated in a suicide attempt. It didn't. This isn't me playing heartstrings. This is me saying that was as low and as bad as things have ever gotten for me. And last year was similar. Not looking at doing self-harm, but it was brutal. And so take that and add it to Zach's question, and it'd be like, oh, you wouldn't, the mere thought of needing to write something for public consumption every week. And I honestly don't think I'm that interesting. And I find it frankly baffling that people would want me to slide into their email box with a newsletter once a week. I'm not wired that way, and I've never been good at self-promotion. And I have incredible admiration for those, like, Kelly Sue is great at advertising herself. Brian has always been really good at it, right? They have understood sort of intuitively how to megaphone and how to interact on that level. And I would literally, like, my Substack would end up being like 2 paragraphs, like, not a whole lot happened, and I'm pissed off about this. How are you guys? And people would be like, what are you working on? I'd be like, I didn't really do. I played a lot of Skyrim. I mean, I don't know what to tell you, So
that's hilarious. Yeah, and Scott, I'm glad you said it, because that's what I was going to say. Instead of Substack, Greg has his Discord.
Yeah. That's where most of my interactions are, and it's an active community, and I like it. And I guess maybe that's how to put this. This is gonna there's a risk that this is gonna sound unintentionally humble braggy, and that's not what I mean. The idea of a newsletter. Never mind Substack. It's a newsletter. And I've had people say, why don't you put out a newsletter? It goes to that self-promotion thing. I am not and have never been comfortable talking about myself like that. But I'm always happy to answer questions and to engage in conversation. And so the Discord server, right? There's a Lazarus Discord. It has all of these We have all of these channels in it to discuss any number of things. I like that community. I can engage in conversation in it. It allows for the interaction. And I like the sense of community, right? I like the fact that there are plenty of people on that Discord who never say anything. And there are plenty of people on that Discord who have probably forgotten they joined it. But we have a lot of people who actually are active and who do communicate and want to talk about things, and be it, politics or the news or something in tech. And I love being able to, I love the fact that I can go on my Discord server and be like, I have a physics question, and 8 people will answer. Right? Like, there are some wonderfully it's not just like smart people, it's this diverse range of experience and knowledge, and I love seeing that. So
that's cool. I don't know the reference of this.
I have no idea.
Okay, Caesar of Rome. I'm not really sure.
Will the authorities show up in the City Boy?
Yeah, I don't know what that means. And Greg,
I'm assuming you were referring to the book. Yep, not me.
Okay, there you go, man. But wanted to acknowledge that. All right.
Oh, no, wait, no. Yeah, no, never mind.
Okay.
I think I did get it, but it took a second. Sorry.
Oh no,
yeah.
He's someone else. There you go.
Yeah.
All right, fair enough, man. I think Josh Williamson might be doing the authority. I forget. But yeah.
Another Portlander.
Indeed, that's what I was thinking as well. Well, Bud, as always, you knocked it out of the park. Everybody, you did. No, we had a good talk, and you're.
It's always good talking to you, man.
You know that, and you're always thoughtful, and I always appreciate everything that you're talking about.
I'm not sure how thoughtful I am, but
No, shut up. Of course you are. And everybody, as you know, The Forged is ongoing, right? Well, it's coming out right now.
Yeah.
Next issue is 2 weeks away.
Yeah.
24.
Issue 3 ends our first arc, and then we will be off until September. And then we'll come back in September with the trade for the first 3. And then 2 weeks after that, issue 4. And then 4, 5, and 6 will be monthly. And then we'll figure it out. So
beautiful, man. I love it.
And Zach, there's a QR code in the back of latest issues of Lazarus and also in The Forged, and that will get you to the Discord server. But there is a permanent link, actually. I don't know. Can I drop that? I don't know if I can drop it in. Can I drop it in?
I don't think.
Can I give it to you?
I think it will take a while to post.
Yeah. But yeah, it's actually, we have an actual official Discord server.
Do you have can you put it in the private chat? And maybe
let me see here. Here we go. And I'm going to switch to the private chat.
Yep.
And I'm going to drop it there. And there you go.
Okay, there it is. All right, everybody, hang on. I will bring up the page in a second.
Yep.
And everyone will see now Greg's.
Yeah, I see. I see. We have a strange Aractor. And yeah, so look, if you join the server, you will drop into new users. You will have to actually read the rules and agree to them. It is not difficult, but this seems to screw people up with remarkable regularity. And there's just a thing you have to type to prove that you read it. That's all you have to do. And then you'll be into the server and you'll see all of the crazy shit we've got there.
And the URL, everybody, is discord.gg/Lazarus-comic.
Yeah.
So there you go. That's
but yeah, and it's got channels for Old Guard and Black Magic and Forged, all of it. So yeah,
beautiful.
And a lot of very funny people, and a huge amount of Star Wars and Star Trek heads. So
well, that's I I've been all about Star Trek Picard.
Yeah.
And you know, we'll see how Strange New Worlds season 2 does. Yeah, fingers crossed indeed.
Yeah.
But you know, all right, my man. We can leave it there, and maybe we'll talk a little bit post show. But as always,
hopefully do this again in the near future.
Yeah, man. If you want in anticipation of the trade, or you know, whatever.
Look, when Cully and I have this thing coming out, we definitely should get together on that too. So
that'd be fun too. Absolutely, man. All right.
Already?
Close.
Thank you, John.
Thank you, Greg. As always, thank you everybody for watching.
Yeah, really, thank you for everybody who showed up and everybody who commented and for all the very kind things that you have said. So
indeed. Till next time, everybody. Stay safe, stay happy, stay healthy.